you're just out of a European summer tour, summer festival tour. You're already promoting your next album. How do you handle such a rhythm?
I think the reason that makes it easy for us to like constantly keep going is that we really have so much fun writing music, recording music, and touring. It's definitely stressful, like physically,
Yeah.
but we do our best to stay like both physically healthy and also mentally healthy by just having a good time, enjoying each other's company, and enjoying the most out of traveling the world and doing this. I think it comes across to people like anytime people see our schedule, like how the hell do you do this? And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like as much work as it actually probably is.
Okay. Your musical style has evolved a lot throughout the years. It still features both aggressive parts, riffs and screamings and blast beats, and also a catchy melody and strong choruses. It's, I guess, truer than ever with that new album. How do you get the balance between both?
I think what comes out naturally is the mixture of everything, because we all share so many influences from obviously metal, but also subgenres of metal and things outside of metal, that when we write the kind of music that we want to hear, which is definitely how we went into this in the sentence, we said, what do we want to listen to as fans of music? What if we weren't in Trivium? How would we want to hear and enjoy music? And what we made was this record, something that has everything. And we realized that our fans and our band, we all like it when there's everything there. Fast, slow, screaming, singing. And when we can have everything, everybody's happy.
I mean, one more thing to add is the song always matters. I say this about any band I'm ever shown. I'm always like, sometimes like the aesthetic is great, the aggression's there. It's like, where's the song? Like, what am I supposed to take? How am I supposed to explain this to someone? And we always talk about that when we get into the rehearsal. Like, if it doesn't feel like there's like a melody there that someone can kind of retain, we keep working at it, because you need that so much. Even on the heaviest point of this record, you will walk away from the song remembering something about it.
Yeah, okay. And how do you manage to have a consistent style and still create something really new and really fresh with every album?
With this record, when we went into it with things I mentioned earlier, another thing we looked at first before saying this thing was we looked back at all of our favorite Trivium moments, and our favorite songs, our favorite records. And as a band, we kept coming back to a majority of like records like In Waves, which is a record that definitely opened the door for us here in France. You know, Ascendancy, Shogun, and we weren't trying to go back to recreate new moments. What we saw was, with those albums, we were always together in a room, the four of us in a room, playing the music, singing the songs, getting everything prepared before going to the studio. The last two records, we agreed with the producers that we would go in to be kind of flexible, not finish the songs, to work together in a room with the producer. And I think that when we go about making music that way, it ends up sounding more Trivium than ever.
I think not having to live up to an expectation of a prior album is sort of liberating when you write. The moment I finish a song, say In Waves, when I made that song, I never thought I need to write something like this again. And not having to like have those sort of limitations makes us just always be in a constant state of what's next. And I know that our natural sort of default when we write is the things that made up all those albums. I don't have to think about, Ascendancy to write a riff that would sound like it could have come from that record. I know that it's all in all our brains. So I guess by not having to live up to the expectations of those albums, we make things that feel like they're a part of those records, but also something new.
Okay. According to the statement that Corey made last year, you began working on this album while you were still with your ex-drummer Paul.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of impact did his departure have on the process?
Well, I guess we were writing at the same time we were touring for the last record, but like we didn't actually do any pre-production.
Okay.
together. Like pre-production started November of last year, right when Alex came into the band. Everything that was prior to that was literally just demos sitting on each of our laptops.
With just the three of us.
And
Okay.
that's like a long process. I mean, I guess everyone always has like piles and piles of demos once we get through the tour cycle, but it's usually like a smaller window of actual pre-production.
Okay. So it is said in the press release that Alex joined the band last year. How did you get to meet him, to record him?
Well, when you're a band that has had a history with having different drummers here and there, now we've had, including Alex, we've had 4 studio drummers. When we knew it was time again to find someone, we said, this has to be the right guy, you know, because when we were looking for a live drummer during the Silence of the Snow cycle, after we parted ways with Matt, we did have a big list of drummers we were looking at. It was like, I don't know, 5, 10 different guys we were looking at and planning. And Alex initially was going to be recommended to us by a good friend of ours, the same guy that recommended him this time, but Alex was busy doing other bands, touring with other bands, doing session work. And this time, when Alex's name came up again, like, hey, this time this guy's available, we looked him up, and we passed word through Mark Lewis. He's one of Corey's good friends. He entered the Crusade. We said, hey, tell Alex to record Rain and Until the World Goes Cold on video with no edits. Send it to us and don't tell him it's from Trivium asking. So he did it, and it came up within a day, and I showed it to the guys, and we all said, all right, this guy really makes it look easy. Now let's give him a set list of material from all 7 records, fly him down. He came in, first day, had everything perfect. It's as if he'd been playing with us forever. Right after that, we said, well, what are you going to do with these new riffs? What would you do here? And then just to be able to write with someone within the first couple days of ever playing with him, if not the second day of ever playing with him, was pretty amazing. And we were all very inspired by his energy. He comes from the same world as us. He comes from metal, getting into metal for the first band, like the first big bands. And then he also loves extreme metal, which is something we have all always talked about how much we love, where it's a thing that we've always kind of brought in appropriately in the band. But you could see that with having 4 guys that are capable of playing everything, what we're able to make when we have that.
Yeah. So what was his input really in the working process, the creative process, let's say?
I mean, it was right away. He didn't have the luxury of living with our demos for like a year. So it was sort of, we gave him the demos. We said, you don't need to know these like but on the back of your hand. You can come in here and we can like really sit down and we'll show you the riffs as we play along. Just kind of get an idea of where we're trying to go with it. When we started playing, it was just go for it, man. Like anything you remember from the demos, if it had drums on it, like pre-programmed drums, if that inspired you, if that felt right, you could start with that. Don't feel like you're limited to just playing that. So we just let him kind of run loose with it. And the first day or two was just really about getting comfortable with writing. He was very attentive to our ideas. But as the week went on, I think we kept reassuring him, hey, try stuff. Don't feel afraid to go to 150%, do something crazy. Don't worry about messing up or anything. There's no right or wrong. We're gonna feel this out, and the right part will present itself, and we can refine from there. And that was just how we started. We had no choice. The limitation was we have 3 weeks right now. We need to get 6 songs done. Sometimes having that intense pressure makes the best music come about.
Yeah. You recorded this album in California with your producer, Josh Wilbur. How did you get to work with him?
We met him on Silence in the Snow. He mixed the record. I spent 4 days in California on that record, helping him, just kind of being like the band representative of how we wanted it to sound. And I kind of used the opportunity to kind of get to know him, kind of ask him about bands he'd worked with, like Gojira, Lamb of God, what the process was like recording those records, what it was like mixing the Megadeth record, the last one he did, and learning about his experience with like working with one of my favorite mixers of all time, Andy Wallace. And his attitude and vibe was like the perfect situation for us. Like, we're like really normal, happy guys that like to make extreme music, like to make heavy music, and his vibe is like the exact same. He's this guy that makes these heavy albums, and he's just super nice, super normal. And for whatever reason, we work best when everything is good. We have to be content, we have to be happy. You know, the more we're laughing and joking, usually the better the music's sounding, the heavier it is. And he was just the right fit for us. And we've always kind of, we've worked with different people for different reasons, you know. And with this record, we felt like if we're going to make a record that has the intensity we want, we need to be happy, we need to be having a good time, and we need someone that both gets the type of music we play and also gets the way we like to work.
Yeah, okay. So how was the collaboration with him? Did he have an input also on the songs, or?
What we wanted to do going in with Josh is we wanted to have everything very prepared before ever setting foot in the studio with him. So Paulo started writing some of the earliest new songs for this record before Silence even came out. Like pretty much as soon as we were done recording, he started writing some new riffs just by feeling energized to do so. When we were being analytical, like I mentioned earlier, about looking back at our career, what we love the most, we kept seeing that our favorite songs and our favorite records were always completed with just us before ever bringing anyone in. And we decided to do that. We decided to start writing this stuff initially individually, like maybe some guys would come with an entire song, a couple riffs, and we piece it together, and then get in the room together with the four of us. We learned everything, made sure it was right, and then flew Josh down to do pre-production. So he could come in and work with us when we've got these songs pretty much complete, the first half of the record, and he can help us evolve things and change things when needed. But we do best when we're prepared, if not overly prepared for things, for everything, for playing live, for doing records, making music. We like to be so prepared that it's probably too much, but that's when we do our best.
I think you need space too. You need to live with some music. Like before I ever show Corey and Matt something, I like need to like feel confident sending it to them. I don't like to send a half-done demo. I don't like to have to explain that something is going to sound a certain way at some point. I like to live with it. And it's the same when we do our music, when we're, you know, when we've gotten past the individual demo stage and we're all working together, we need to live with it a little bit. I think having some space between the pre-production with the tour we did in March was really important because we got to live with it. We got to, you know, when you're in there and you're like, wow, this is the greatest, you know, this is the greatest song we've ever made. You know, give it a month and see if you really like it. Give it 2 months and see if you like it. And that is important for us. And, you know, we need Josh coming in after we've lived with it for a while to make sure we're not, like, biased and we're, you know, kind of lost the plot or anything. He comes in and he was like the final filter we had to go through to make these songs into something special.
Okay. So you declared, Paolo, that the new material will be more extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all feel like you needed to go back to something heavier?
I think it was like a mixture of, after doing the last record, feeling like we were probably going to go that way. But it wasn't until we knew Matt could really do the screaming again. It was kind of like, well, if he can't do it, we're going to have to kind of reconfigure our band to make it work long term. The moment we started playing like more heavy stuff again in our set, when Matt's screaming really came back and was, you know, this was going to be a viable thing again, it just felt right. I mean, I feel like the world needs intense music because it is the perfect outlet. I think escapist music, it's good sometimes. I mean, you know, it is perfectly great to listen to a pop song and it's happy, but I need heavy music, not only to listen to like other bands, I need to write heavy music. When I play a fast riff, it's like, it really is like therapy in a way. It just, you feel great after, and I think all of us just naturally felt like we needed to go that way. And it didn't, there was no point where any of us were like, well, maybe we should continue on with how we were doing Silence in the Snow. It was like, no, we're going to start writing some heavy stuff again, and it's going to feel good. And the moment we got in the rehearsal room, it was like, I don't know, it was like coming home again. It felt natural.
Okay. So the album is entitled The Sin and the Sentence. What does it mean to you, first of all?
The song to me is like a metaphor of the witch hunt being a metaphor for how we currently live. You know, we live a lot of our lives online, and you can see every day people attacking each other over different things and getting mobs together to attack others. It's like one of those things where, yeah, it's something new because you do it online or do it on the internet, but it's a very like natural thing that humans seem to be able to fall into, attacking others. And the sin in the sentence being, the sin being whatever sort of thing this person or this group did to elicit the sort of punishment that the mob wants to inflict on them. I've heard a couple people kind of reference things with it possibly being religious. I think it's open to interpretation. Like, my meaning doesn't necessarily reflect on what it could be about. I love when people can read words and have a different perspective on it. I think it's the exact same with music. Sometimes people will say something in our song reminds them of something I would have never thought. So, don't take our meaning for what these words mean as the definitive thing. It can mean a lot more than that. But that's what I was specifically writing about when I started it.
Okay. Does it represent kind of a thread throughout the album, or even
that
a concept,
was like
maybe?
another thing people have kind of been saying. It's kind of weird because we didn't sit down and we didn't say these 11 songs are like a narrative. This is about one person. I think we try to make sure that every song musically is dynamic and different, but at the end of the record, like, people should feel like this is one thought. And I think we did the same with the lyrics. And by doing all the lyrics as we're writing the music, I think there are certain concepts and ideas that definitely run parallel to each other, but it's not a story. There's not like one character or one perspective, but
fans wanna.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, if someone is taking away that this feels like a story, I guess I've felt that with other records before, that I know they're not. I know this isn't like one concept, but it feels like it, and that's really, I think, such a compliment when people say that, because I don't think we were intending that. But if it feels like this is like a story, like that's killer. Then we did something special.
When you mentioned that, made me think, like, when the Ishan record Das Seelenbrechen came out, I wrote an entire like movie that I saw in my head to it, and I posted on my blog and I sent it to Ishan. I was like, this is what I see when I hear your record. And that was a really cool thing for him, because that wasn't what he intended, and hopefully people come up with that. And even me, because with this record, Paulo wrote a majority of the lyrics and vocal melodies, obviously, because he's talking about the meanings. And it was great for me because I was able to look at these other sets of lyrics and interpret them within my own and come up with my own storyline in my head for what it meant, even if it was something completely different. And I've never been able to experience that in Trivium. I've always been the one from the beginning, kind of started the idea, and these guys have helped me finish the idea. But to have something completed that I was really into and to be able to connect to was a really interesting experience.
Okay. So we were talking about the lyrics. What are the main themes of the album?
I guess like one theme that kind of keeps coming up throughout the records is disconnection, people not being able to communicate, even though it theoretically should be the easiest time in history to communicate with others. Not finding understanding with one another. Definitely a lot of an us and them type dynamic, and seeing that, that's just the constant thing that the world has to grapple with. There's never going to be a time when people don't exploit fear and emotions to gain things, to pit each other, or to pit everyone against one another for whatever reasons. And we kind of use the backdrop of what's been going on in the world for the last few years as sort of like an emotional basis for the songs. I think that's why we needed to write a heavier record this time. It felt right. It felt like the world needs music that feels like it's holding up a mirror to it. And the aggression, for us, like, this record is getting that out. We needed to get that out of our system after like the last 2 years. And I hope people can take this record and get that aggression out as well.
Okay. The artwork is really simple and really refined. What does it stand for?
What we wanted to do with this record was allow the auditory art to influence the visual art. And we worked again this time with John Paul Douglas, who's been a close friend of all of ours. He did everything for Silence the Snow, most of the artwork for In Waves. And we also had my wife, Ashley Hafey, do the inlays, the design, everything that is involved with the last 2 records. So the 2 of them were the combo that we wanted for for the Sin and Sentence. And we gave John Paul the music, and we wanted him to create based off that. We had original plans and ideas of where we wanted to go, but you can never really know how it's going to evolve. So when he first heard the music, the themes that he started coming up with are immediately the vibe of the video, the Sin and the Sentence. So there is more photography artwork like that in the packaging. But when my wife started doing the packaging contents themselves and designing the contents of the record, she started making symbols for every single song, because that's what the music told her to do, I guess. And when we saw the symbols come together, and we saw that the Sin and the Sentence symbol, that's what shifted the record drastically. Because initially this record was called The Revanchist. Then when we started hearing the music, we're like, no, let's self-title this, that feels a little more appropriate. Then we saw the symbol, and we saw how great this song was, and how we knew we wanted to lead the record with this. We said, that's the title now. So things just kept evolving. And what's really cool, speaking of art, it's like this country has also been pretty influential for us. Like, we've been using French artists for majority of our artwork, for our tour posters, for our t-shirts. Fort FM from France, Metastasis from France, and Yeah Studios from France. I believe they're all Parisian even. So they've been like creating a lot of the stuff that we have outside of this, and like the new tour poster for North America is a French artist as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So you will be yes, as you said, touring the US this fall.
Mm-hmm.
Just a week, I guess, after the release of the album. You're touring with 2 pretty extreme bands this time, Alchemy and Fit for an Autopsy. How did this tour came about?
We were talking to Arch Enemy for a little bit because we knew they were putting out a record, and anytime like our records have ever kind of timed out, we've been able to do some really awesome tours together. We did Ozfest 2005, we did the Black Crusade tour, which went across Europe, which was incredible. And we've always really fit well together. We've always gotten along. It's like our music is different in some ways, but definitely in other ways very similar. And it's just always a great pairing, and we wanted to make sure we could get 2 other bands to come along with us that, you know, we feel are making great music, but kind of slightly different than us. While She Sleeps on Fit for an Autopsy. And I just think having a package like that in the States is perfect, because we get to showcase some other new bands while, you know, pairing up with people we've been friends with for a long time.
It's like the best-selling North American tour we've had in ages, if not ever, which is really cool. Yeah, it's just bands that we love. We like to tour with bands that we're fans of. And Arch Enemy's been one of our favorite bands and biggest influences forever. The new While She Sleeps record is incredible.
Yeah.
Fit for an Autopsy is something I listen to every day going to jiu-jitsu. So it's like, it's things we love, and we like to tour with bands we're excited about. We like to talk about the bands we're excited about.
Okay. Okay, that's all for me, guys.
Thank you very much.
for
I
answering.
appreciate it.
Thank you.